comes to the film Oppenheimer, I'm going to be completely honest, I think it's the best film this year so far, for a whole matter of reasons. Firstly, the cast. We get a great slew of cast members who do a really great job, not only Cillian Murphy, who is the centre of this film, but actors like Robert Downey Jr., Rami Malek, Matt Damon, Casey Affleck, Emily Blunt, Florence Pugh, all doing fantastic performances. And then even a small scene with Gary Oldman. It was a small scene but very pivotal to the movie and did an amazing job. The story itself is quite non-linear. We get it set as far back as the 1920s all the way up to 1958, and it's following the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, seeing him in his Cambridge years all the way to Caltech in the Manhattan Project, and then somewhat ending his story in 1954 with his infamous FBI hearing, which was created as there were rumours and allegations of him being a Soviet Union spy. Now, I was very much fascinated how obsessive in a quite toxic way the FBI was over communists, as if you were to have a left-wing opinion, i.e. unionising, they would label you a communist or having communist thinking, and they could really use their powers to somewhat have you blackballed from certain things, really investigate into you and somewhat ruin your career. We see this as Oppenheimer, who is quite left-wing. He has a lot of left-wing ideas, but is in no way, shape or form a communist. He has somewhat same beliefs, but he had never joined the Communist Party. We see this, and because of the fact that he is friends with communists, he has family members who were in the Communist Party but have since left. He has been in relationships with women who were also part of the Communist Party, and all because of that, he has had that label follow him his entire career. Even during the Manhattan Project, he couldn't get clearance because of these so-called rumours, which is quite interesting to learn about, really. Another thing about the film that I found quite hooking and interesting is seeing how he was introduced to the Manhattan Project, and how as soon as he was given the job, he took charge and he was able to get a lot of scientists behind him. He was creating quite a unique plan, and then even came up with the idea of taking all these scientists out into the desert area to study and somewhat create a home for them all, hence being Los Alamos. As I didn't know much about Oppenheimer, it's just really fascinating to learn this. Another thing that I found quite hooking and thoroughly interesting is during the early stages of the Manhattan Project and looking into the theory and the maths of creating such an atomic bomb, they find out that in the maths it looks like the eruption of the bomb could be never ending and could destroy the world. And we just see the fear in these scientists, and how even though they're willing to create such a thing, they don't want to create something that's going to cause more damage than they necessarily want, or something that would actually blow up the world. And that leads up to another thing that I found very interesting, is how after the two bombs were dropped on Japan and essentially ending the war, we could see from the scientists' point of view, they know their duty's been done, but they're not happy about it. And you see a lot of other people somewhat celebrating this, and we see Oppenheimer really taken back by it as he is doing a speech to all the people at Los Alamos, and he is somewhat hallucinating the effects a nuclear bomb would do. He's seeing it through people around the crowd and in his own head. It really shows that it had taken a toll on him. There's a bittersweet ending as we see that Oppenheimer loses his security clearance, but at the same time in the 1960s he is rewarded. We somewhat see a little bit of this during the end of the film. Now, I really love the story, but that's not the only good thing about this film, as there are a great amount of visuals scattered throughout this film. I think the visuals, whilst they are beautiful, they don't overshadow the story itself. Even though this film is 3 hours, it really didn't feel like that to me. I was so hooked to the story that I didn't really notice time. And I'm actually questioning whether I should watch it again in cinemas, just because I was so enthralled with the story itself. Now, that's not to say this film is criticless. There are two criticisms I have with this film. First of all is I found it very hard to know where I was in the film, like timeline wise, as they don't really tell you, and you got coloured side from the 1920s all the way to early mid 1940s, and then black and white for everything else, but then it's somewhat changed at times, and I just kind of wish they put timestamps around, because I kind of had to Google after seeing the film where I was timeline wise. My second criticism is about the nudity from the actress Florence Pugh. I didn't think it was actually necessary to have nudity in this film. Now, the sex scenes show what these characters and their relationships are like, but at the same time I just didn't think the nudity added anything to the scenes. If anything, it just raised the certification and could potentially damage it in box office wise. Those are my criticisms, but overall the film itself is very interesting, as not only are we learning about Oppenheimer, his early days all the way up to the Manhattan Project and him trying to stop any replication of the Manhattan Project. I also found it very interesting as it's somewhat very political, as we see that back then if you had a political opinion that was very different from others, i.e. somewhat left wing or far left wing or communist, then the government or those with higher power like the FBI would investigate you and could possibly ruin your career. And it's just really interesting to know how society has somewhat changed, and Oppenheimer really fought to have his opinion heard, but because of that they tried to silence him as well. So yeah, overall, is this film good? No, it is amazing. Rating wise is at 9 out of 10. Now, when it comes to recommendations, obviously Christopher Nolan has an amazing catalogue of films. Now, the ones I've seen are Memento, The Dark Knight Trilogy and Inception. Admittedly, I know he has plenty more and I know I should watch them. After watching this, I'm definitely diving into that catalogue. And my other recommendation is Cillian Murphy, who is a great actor. He has appeared in many of those Nolan films, but my recommendation is 28 Days Later, as I believe that is the first film I've ever seen him in, and I think he did a great performance. Now, when it comes to other recommendations, admittedly when it comes to biopics, they're so vastly different. This one really feels different compared to others, and so I'm kind of overwhelmed and struggling to think of other good biopics quite like this. And so those are my recommendations. This has been my review for Oppenheimer. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe. But most importantly, thank you for watching and have a nice day.